Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's session by Level Up. I'm your host, Namrata, and today we are diving into the essentials of prompt engineering that actually works. To lead the way, we are joined by Mr. Loukik Salvi, Assistant Professor at Thakur College of Engineering and Technology, an expert in AI, IoT, and digital trust. Mr. Salvi's work focuses on secure, sustainable technology and the innovative goals of NEP 2020. He is a mentor who inspires students to innovate responsibly and make real world impact. Sir, we are honored to have you here. The digital floor is all yours now.
Thank you so much for the kind words. I'm really obliged to be a part of this session, and a big kudos to the Level Up team for setting up this entire thing and
Thank you
giving me
so
this
very much.
opportunity to actually present in front of all the OpenAI enthusiasts about this particular aspect of the prompt engineering. I'll just share from engineering and tokenization today. And basically, this session is going to be centered in and around how the large language models are going to process test. Now, why is this important? Is because we need to understand the fact that whatever we write on the chat GPT is of utmost importance to chat GPT, and on the basis of what we write, we are going to get deliverables in that manner. So today we are basically going to center our agenda about what exactly prompt engineering is, why exactly the prompt matters, and then we're going to move towards the tokenization, which is something of great importance, but often or more than often it is always something that is not given equal amount of importance. And then we'll see how actually the tokens are going to affect the outputs, and then we'll have some key takeaways from the session. Okay, now let us dive into the session straight away and talk about prompt engineering. uh, in many of my sessions as well, and always in the talks that I have delivered, I have always ensured to put this across by saying that prompt engineering is always going to be a specific kind of engineering that happens in and around the OpenAI and the chat GPT models. Why? Because we often feel that a prompt is just a conversation, but we have to think of it as a meaningful conversation and not just a conversation that we have with our OpenAI or maybe any platforms that are based out of AI or the generative AI platforms. So when we talk about prompting, it is more of like a specific engineering, and it means that we are going to have a clear and a structured instruction given to the AI, because this AI is going to be like our assistant who's going to help to produce the desired output. So if we have to have a bottom line regarding prompts, it will be that these prompts are going to guide the particular model, and their response are going to be particularly dependent on what and how do we prompt. Secondly, if we talk about a clear prompting, this is going to help us reduce the wrong answers that we get, because often or not, we'll always see that whenever we have the prompts written, these prompts will always give us some or the other output, and gone are those days when we only talk about the output delivery from the chat GPT. But today we talk about the optimization. Today we talk about how well the output of the chat GPT or prompts that we give are, and on the basis of this we say that these are the levels on which we actually differentiate between the various OpenAI, or maybe for that case the generative AI platforms that we have. So clear prompting is going to reduce the wrong answers, and I am going to increase on my optimization and throughput that I have with the OpenAI platforms. Now, why does this prompt engineering matter? So, because if we talk about AI is not going to understand the meaning. So, maybe it can literally understand what you're writing, but not metaphorically understand what you're wanting to say. So, AI is not going to understand about the meanings as we do as humans. And when we talk about meanings here, we're talking about the contexts. So, for context, it may be that we are talking about something that's very expressive. Talking about something that is with respect to some audience. We're talking with respect to the backdrop or background of what we are saying is derived out of something that is not being discussed with the chat GPT. So it is going to actually predict the next word on the basis of the patterns that it is going to mine from the prompts or from the inputs that you have given. So in a way, we can say, to culminate these two particular slides, we can say a poor prompt is going to lead to a poor result, for sure. So better prompts are often going to matter more than the better models, because we can have n number of models running around ourselves, in a way that we have ChatGPT, Gemini, and all of the generative models. But if we, as humans and as users, we do not prompt in a better manner, these models are not going to be of that use, or that optimized usage is not going to be leveraged out of them. So it is very important to prompt well, and that is why the bottom line is that this every aspect of prompt engineering is very important. Now, let us try to understand a particular aspect of how AI generates the responses, because this is very important, and this is going to help us to understand and appreciate the fact that how exactly the prompt engineering is going to work. So, if we talk about if we for that case, let us talk about how do small children, or small children's or human brain try to understand about what instructions they are given. If we talk in the form of instructions, if we talk about the inputs that can be broken down into small pieces, it is going to be of better understanding. In the same manner, we can say that the AI is going to take the entire input and break it down into the small pieces. Further, the AI is going to predict next piece step by step, as in it is always going to understand on the basis of pieces that it has been given what next is the user wanting to predict, and these predictions that it is going to make is going to be the final answer that comes out of it. So that is very important to understand, that it is based subjectively on the objective outcomes that you give. And this subjectivity, if this subjectivity is very very huge, then it will always give you wrong outputs. So we want this AI model to be less subjective and more objective oriented, and in that case the predictions that we get in the form of the final answers are always well and truly going to be in the right path of action. So now that we have talked about why exactly this particular aspect of prompts is going to matter, now we have to talk about why exactly the prompts are going to fail. So we know that prompt engineering is now not just any other thing that we do, but it's an actual specific engineering. At the same time, we know that the AI models are going to think as in the way of we think, and we have to make them feel as babies who are trying to understand what we are wanting to get from them, but at a better IQ level. So we now need to understand that prompt is a weapon in our arsenal, which can actually, as I said, going to enhance the usage of the AI models. Now for this, now we have to spend some time in understanding why exactly the prompts are going to fail. So prompts can be instructions from what we know from the previous slide, but if these instructions are too vague, then they are going to fail. Now, what do we mean by vague is, let us say my instruction is write an essay. Now on what, why, for whom, how much, nothing is specified. So that would be a vague instruction. Second is, if we talk about no target audience, for that case, if we talk about the target audience, it is going to help us to have a context set, and this context will help the chat gpt to give me an input which I feel is right and apt for what we were trying to look for. So maybe if I say that I just write a speech, he would give me an abstract output. For me, it is an abstract output because it does not actually fit the goal that I want to overcome. Maybe that speech was for a kindergarten students, or it was for a graduate student, but it has given me a superficial speech which either of or neither of them are going to understand. So in that way, the prompt is going to fail. Third most important thing is the output format. Now, we know that well and truly in our world, in the real world as well, visualization is very important. And visualizing everything, and if properly, if the data is prepared and visualized and maybe kept in that manner, we'll be able to understand what the prompt or what the output is trying to tell us. And we can say, in a way, these are the two coins, two sides of the same coin. That on the first side, on the other side, or the one side of the coin, we have a proper structured input, and on the other side of the coin, we have a proper formatted output of the output questions or output answers that I need the chat gpt or maybe any platform to answer. Now if the output format is very unclear, and not told to the OpenAI or maybe the ChatGPT or any generative AI platform, you can end up getting an output which is not at all clear, and you might not understand and interpret it. Even if whatever is shared in that output is right, you would not feel it to be proper because the output is unclear. And the last and the most important thing is too many tasks given in one prompt. I have to be specific, and we have to understand the fact that prompting is not instructionalizing at its core, but it is striking a conversation which is instructional, optimized, and to the point, and that is how the significance of it is maintained. So too many tasks in one prompt is not at all appreciable. And in a while, we'll have a look at few techniques, and we'll have few examples to talk about, in which we'll be going through a few brief hands-on session on how exactly too many prompts can actually be a spoil sport when it comes to prompting and their answers. Now let us talk about what are the characteristics of a good prompt. And these are going to be very contrary to what we did in the previous slide, in which we talked about what exactly a bad prompt looks like. Now, for a good prompt, the first and the very aspect over here is going to be goal that we want to have, or the goal that we want to reach. So being oriented, so setting a clear goal is very important. Second is to have enough context. Now, context is a very subjective term, and we can have n number of aspects to the context. But here we are wanting to have enough contextual background given to the generative AI platforms, so much so that they can understand that what is the clear goal of this particular prompt. Third is a simple and a direct language. Now, for a simple and a direct language over here, we need to understand that particularly the aspect of the language over here has to be very important. So for which we have to know that the simple and direct language is what the good prompt looks like. And the fourth aspect is going to be the clear output expectations. We have to ensure that the output expectation is going to be clearer and should be clear. And if it is, then only then we can make it to be a good prompt. Now, what exactly is a bad versus a good prompt? Now, let us look at a bad prompt over here, and that is explaining what is machine learning for that case, right? So, if I just write what is machine learning, explain machine learning in that case, so we could say that that is exactly some kind of bad prompting. And for good prompting, we'll have to then explain it in a much better manner. So we have explaining machine learning for first year students in 5 points, right? Let us switch to the chat GPT and see how this exactly works, right? So just give me a minute, I'll switch. Yeah, over here. Let us just try by having the first prompt given as, or in that case, let us just write ML. What is ML, right? So maybe, I started off by thinking that particularly I want to know more about ML, and this is what I have got. So it has given me what is the full abbreviated full form of machine learning or ML in that case, and then it has given me some examples and one-liners and all of that. Now this entire thing, the question is, will it exactly help me to know more about the ML, and will it actually help me to solve the problem of the ML? The answer is no. So maybe if I use a keyword called as explain machine learning. Now I've just added, instead of what, I have added explain. Let us see if now it is going to give me a better, clearer approach. What do we see in difference? Is this is what a vague example or a vague definition looks like. And here we have a formal definition for now, but apart from that, everything else is the same. It has added some steps which were not really mentioned over here, and we have those steps written over here in this one, and there are some examples, and it has given me main types. So you could say, in a way, the size, the length of the output over here has been increased. right? So comparatively, the token that we gave what is ML to explain machine learning has, to the most we can say, has increased the length at which we can length of the output that we have got. Okay, now let us go one step ahead. I take this step again in a research rich, it could be tone or language, right? So now I've just added one more constraint. So if you look at this, this is what my previous thing looked like. Now I have this in the form of a constraint given to it. So that is in a research rich constraint. Now what you see over here is all of a sudden this machine learning definition now has become formal, and with that I have it in the research aspect as well. Then I have the conceptual foundation, then I have the learning paradigms, and then I have a primary category, unsupervised, and all of that mentioned. The length has increased, but if you see, the context or the language has now become very research oriented, right? So just to give you a gist of what is happening around here, uh, let us put this in an academic rich tone, right? So if I put this, now what happens over here is this is now not going to mention about the research aspect, but only in the aspect of how an academic overview looks like. So everything, if you see, is now cut short in a way as compared to that of what we had in the previous research based language, right? So maybe for, if I still stick to research for that case, for a senior member of academics, let us say, I'm just not trying to split and add everything together, so we have a rich tone of language for senior member of academics uh, in 150 words, right? So that is what we are wanting to do in that case, and we could say now it is only in 150 words, right? So I have just kept it into 150 words, and now I'm explaining the entire machine learning in 150 words. It has to be in a research rich tone, and let us it be for a senior member of academics into 150 words. Now what happens in this is my understanding from all of these things that we have had from the above is been very abstract, and it is a lot to learn and read from it, right? But now here what we can say is machine learning as a part of this is only placed in the paragraph format, and this paragraph is quite generalized, but it is always in the research rich tone. Now if I just compare this, if I have this over here again, and in the place of research, now I write academic rich tone, right? So what happens over here, again we are going to stick to 150 words, right? And I get this, and this is going to be a academic rich tone, and this, if you see, is going to be very very heavy with the jargons of machine learning, and this is going to be rich in the research aspect. Now if we take the same thing over here, and instead of 150 words I put it in the tabular format, right? So what happens over here is now I'm trying to specify the various aspect of the machine learning, and this is put in the tabular form. So now we have the aspect, and then we have the academic descriptions, in which basically we have the definitions and the theoretical foundations, learning objectives, core paradigms, model training, all of that which was taken in the form of a paragraph now has been written in the form of a table over here. And that is exactly how the change in the understanding is what we can get from this particular aspect, right? And now if we just talk about this for a moment, let us also format for a 10-year-old. If I just add one more constraint over here, right? So what happens is if I just talk about the data in that case, the data is in the form of, let us just take one form of the row, that is the data, right? And data over here is written as data is in the form of the computer studies as pictures, number, and all of this. Now this language that was used is not being used in any of these aspects, right? And you can see that there is a change in how these particular aspects are mentioned: the definition, theoretical foundation, learning objectives, and all of that. But whereas for a 10-year-old model, 10-year-old person, it is put in the form of machine learning, data and learning processes, model training, prediction, and exactly why it matters, right? So this is exactly how we can say, if you just go back, yeah. So how we can how we can come back to the good versus the bad prompt over here. So more details, as we mentioned and as we studied, is going to give you more and a better control over how the things are going to look like, right? So in a way we can say that a good and a bad prompt is all about setting the context and so setting the background. So that is exactly how the prompts are going to work, and exactly how you can say that get giving out better details is going to have a better control. Because we more than often we just come to ChatGPT with the thought that I want to know something or I want to search something. But if that is not placed and that is not shown to the ChatGPT, or not communicated to the ChatGPT in a way that maybe I am wanting to ask questions about, then the output is not going to be great. But if you want to have the output in the exact same manner that I am wanting to uh, deal with, then in that case I'll have to give much more details and then exercise much more control over it. Now let us talk about iteration. The aspect of prompt iteration is very very important. So maybe here, as I said, we have to treat it like a conversation, and this conversation might not be the perfect conversation right from the first, right? So from the first answer that I get from the chat gpt, it might not be perfect. It is going to improve step by step, and that is what we saw. If I can to take back you to the chat gpt, if we see over here, the first conversation that we had was about what is ml. So it felt it as if I don't even know the full form of ml. So it told me about the full form of the ml to start with, and then it talked about how machine learning in a way is defined, and then I got the various examples of it. Now what exactly is machine learning and how do we actually get around it is in the explainability of the machine learning. And then we talked about the improvement in the form of a research rich tone, and the possible improvements then were made in the academic tone, and then the format was brought into consideration, right? So that is exactly what we are trying to say here. The progress is going to be very very is going to be very very perpetual, and it is going to be a small changes that you make inside your prompt which is going to bring small or very significant improvements in the results that you want to take up, right? So that is exactly how the prompt iteration is going to work. And if you see, improving prompts step by step is going to be the key to what we can have as a complete ecosystem built for a good prompting, right? So that is very important to understand. Okay, now a very important aspect of prompting, and that is tokenization. Now this will help us to understand that how exactly the particular aspect of ChatGPT or any prompts is going to work. Now, talking about tokenization, just to give you a brief understanding about tokenization as it is quite literally placed, tokenization is a process of breaking the text into small units. And we said that ChatGPT or AI for that context is going to do that for us. That whenever I give anything to the AI, it is going to break the entire thing into small units, right? So these small units are going to be your tokens, and these tokens are going to have some or the other weights, and these weights are some or the other going to bias the entire output that you're going to get. So this input, as we know that the entire input for the the ML or the AI is always tokenized, and it is placed in the instructional manner always. So for having an instructional manner always, we have to understand that the tokenization is going to be a process of breaking it into small units, and these small units are going to feed them into the AI model, and then particularly it is going to give us what we want in that case, as in what output that we want in that case, right? So it is exactly how tokenization is going to help us. Now, on the lines of why exactly tokenization is needed, first we have languages which have unlimited words. So we know that for every word there could be a synonym or a antonym to it, right? But AI will always need a limited vocabulary, so it cannot be like a human who understands each and every word in the same aspect. But we have to train them in a way that it understands the different and the array of words that we put towards it in the same limited vocabulary, right? So these tokens will actually work as a similarity index that it is going to work on itself, and this similarity index then is going to help us to actually somehow paraphrase our learning and do it in the efficient manner. So it is very very important in that case, right? So in a way, to understand the tokens, we'll also have an exercise done for understanding how exactly the tokenization works, for which we'll just skip this particular PPT and go to this, the OpenAI platform tokenizer. Now this is a tokenizer which actually will help us to understand uh, what exactly the chat GPT gets to know from how or when you type. So let us look at this. Right now, this is just an example that we have given over here. Now from this example, if you see, there are three sentences for us. There are three sentences, and maybe there could be some 10 to 20 odd words that we have in between them. And here, if you see, we have all of the things mentioned over here, in terms of there are spaces, there are special characters, there are there are numerals, and there are multiple aspects to it as well, right? Now what ChatGPT does is it is going to convert all of this into the tokens for us, right? And it is going to make, from this it has made out 53 tokens. So this is how the mapping of token looks like over here, right? And the color scheme that it has used is exactly to map the similarity and its understanding about each and every aspect, and keep them under the similar categories or similar buckets. And the calculation of the characters is done in that case, as 252 characters are mentioned. Now if we switch to the token IDs, so if you see, every person over here is given everything from this particular aspect is given a different token ID, and this token ID is going to be individual and very relevant to every word that we use in this case. And every word that we use in this case roughly is going to translate into some words and some particular calculations that are going to be done in the background of this. Now these token IDs are going to be fed into the model, and then further the modeling is going to be done. So this is a very important exercise to understand that how, if in order to make the model learn and understand, the model is always going to use a statistical understanding, and these statistical understanding will always be provoked using this token IDs. And further, it can then go ahead in predicting what the next token sequence is going to look like, and everything that comes as an output to this particular input is going to be mapped with this input token sequence. And if there is a coherence in that, only then we can say that the particular output that we have got is of the good quality. So now coming back to this, we just talked about why tokenization is needed. Now let us talk about words versus the tokens. So what we humans understand is, we talk about words, right? So a word, particularly a word, is going to be meaningful to our understanding, whereas the token is what the machines are going to understand. But it does not mean that every word maps to a token. We can say that one word may also be split into multiple tokens. So if we can talk about the words, for us it is culmination of multiple letters, and multiple words are going to culminate into multiple sentences or statements. But if you talk about particularly the tokens, these tokens are going to be built on the characters, and these characters are there going to be divided into tokens, and these tokens then predict what is going to come in the near future for that case. So that is about words and tokens, right? Now, examples of token, just to give you an example, the common words may be taken as one token. So something that is repetitively placed in our prompt is taken as one token, one single token. Long or rare words, these long words or rare words, in order to understand more about it and help have their help for the prediction, we may split it in that case. And then we have numbers and symbols, and these numbers and symbols have different relationships and different coherence and different significance in the aspect of the sentence that we have written or the prompt that we have written. So these are going to be placed differently. So the total count rule or the token count rule, if you have to have, one token is always said to be a 4 characters, and 100 tokens are taken to be a 75 words. And the token count is always approximate. For this case, if we just go back over here, right? So in this as well, if you see, the 4 counts are taken as one token. So everything that maps to 4 counts is taken as one token. And approximately, even here, these 100 tokens are approximated as 75. So this is just an approximation, and those tokens will not only just consist of letters, but it will also consist of spaces and other characters in that case, right? So just let me take you back to that particular slide that we were on. Yeah, so these tokens are taken into an approximate count. Next, why exactly does these tokens are going to matter? First, it is going to affect the response length. So on the basis of tokens that we get, we are going to get a effective response, and the length of that response is going to be dependent on the tokens that we have given. Next, the most important aspect over here is the cost and speed. So if you see, if you have more tokens which are being generated, it is going to impact our overhead in the terms of cost and the speed, right? And if we keep on giving something that is very irrelevant, insignificant, and maybe very rare in its approach, it is going to limit how much the text AI can actually remember. And that is how the entire aspect of the AI output is going to be defined. So that is very important to understand, that next time when we prompt, we have to keep in our mind that everything over here is going to be converted into a token. So it has to be tokenized in that manner, and we have to give a very preformed input to it. Now, if we just add the dimension of prompting with token aware, a token or tokenization, what we have to do is, first we have to avoid unnecessary words. Too many unnecessary words have to be just done away with them. Then we have to use a structured prompt, which is very important. Prompt is a good thing to do, but unstructuring or unstructured prompt is not going to serve us well. So it is very important to use a structured prompt. And third is to put the most important instructions first, because we don't want the AI to work without any context or background. It has to be put in the most first or the primary position that you can in a prompt. Common mistakes while we do that would be very long prompts which do not have context, no clear output format, and the background information is either too less or too more. So it is going to always overpower what the output that I wanting to mine from the prompts. And lastly, if you look at the final takeaway over here, it is going to be, if we talk about the AI models, these AI models are going to use tokens and patterns, right? Always. So clear and structured prompts are always going to lead us to a better responses. But while we do that in the wake of clear and structured prompts, we always forget that too long prompts are also not going to be better or a good substitute to what we are wanting to do. So always having a crisp, not too long, not too short, tokenized prompts are going to be an important. For that, we always have to remember this particular exercise that we did today, right? So with that, we have reached to the end of this session, right? And the final takeaway, as I said, should be that we should be able to prompt well, and it should be as a conversation, and we have to be patient enough to get a positive and optimized output from the generative AI platforms that we have, right?
Thank you so very much, sir. Honestly, it's rare to get such practical look at AI that also respects the digital trust, that side of things. Today, we talk about the machines to get meaningful results, and so we really appreciate you sharing your expertise with the Level Up community today. Thank you so very much, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I look forward to having such meaningful conversations even further. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so very much. And to everyone who tuned in, thanks for being there. I hope we are walking away with some solid ideas to try out. And we will see you at the next one.